Okay, so good day again. For today's lesson, we will be discussing about control statements. So conditional statements control the behavior in JavaScript and determine whether or not pieces of code can run. And there are multiple different types of conditionals in JavaScript, which will include the if statement. So if statements are used where if a condition is true, it is used to specify execution for a block of code. There is also what we call the else statement, where if the same condition is false, it specifies the execution for a block of a code. And we also have the else if statements. This specifies a new test if the first condition is false. So what we have here on our screen is the if statement. So or the if else statement. So the if statement allows you to test an expression and then make a branch in the script's flow of control. So you can nest if statements obtaining multi-way branches depending on the need of the system that you are currently doing or developing. So we have here the proper syntax in creating the if else statement in our JavaScript. So we start with the if followed by the condition. So in this example, we have number is equivalent to 1. So if it turns out to be true, it will display an alert box. So that is the alert, the number is 1. Or an alert box will appear stating the number is 1. And then else, if number is equivalent to 2, then the alert box will pop out and it will display the number is 2. And else, alert, the number is neither 1 or 2. So that is how we nest if statements. Next, we have here the else if statement ladder. So in this example, we use again the condition or we have here the if, then followed by is the number equivalent to 1. Then if it turns out to be true, then an alert box will pop out saying the number is 1 or showing the string, the number is 1. Else, if number is equivalent to 2, then alert box will pop out saying or displaying the string, the number is 2. And else, another alert box or an alert box will pop out showing the string, the number is neither 1 or 2. So actually, the if statement, including the else if statement, is considered as the most common type of conditional. Moving on, we also have what we call our switch statement. So the switch statement is useful when one variable or the result of an expression can have multiple values, for each of which you want to perform a different function. So for example, consider a PHP-driven menu system that passes a single string to the main menu code. So according to what the user requests, let's say the options are home, about, news, login, and links. We set the variable page to one of this according to the user's input. So if we write the code for this using the if else statement, so it would be a longer one. So that would include the use of the if statement and then page or our variable is equivalent to home, and then we can use the function document that right and display you selected home. And then else if for if the page is equivalent to about, then we can also again use the document.write function, and it will show you selected about. And as long or the same with the news, the login, and the links. So in this example, we can see how we can use the switch statement. So this syntax or this line of code should be written inside the start tag and end tag of a script. Do not forget that, guys. So we have start tag script and the forward slash script for our end tag. And then between those two tags are our line of codes. So we have here switch, and then we use the variable page. So if you can remember, so we have here for home tab, for messages, and for contacts. A while ago, what I have mentioned are home, about, news, login, and link. So in this example, we only use the tabs home, messages, and contacts. So if the statement or if the value of the page turns out to be home, then we can use the function document right, and you selected home will pop out or will be displayed. And then if we use or we selected messages, then it will display you selected messages, and same thing goes with contacts. So another message will or will display saying you selected contacts. So that is how it goes for our switch statement. So again, it is useful when one variable or the result that we want of an expression can have multiple values. So in this example, we have different values for home, for messages, and for contact. And then moving on, we have what we call our looping statements. So the looping statements that we have here are actually the looping statements that we are also utilizing in different programming languages. So first, the looping statement that we have here is the for loop. So the for loop statement is the most commonly used looping statement, and it is used to perform a sequence of one or more instructions multiple times. So we have here the general form of the for loop. So again, we start with the word for, and then inside it or inside the parentheses, we have the initialization, the test value, and then followed by the increment or decrement that we'd want to incorporate. So again, do not forget, guys, that you have to separate these parts or these contents of the for loop with semicolon. And then the for loop typically initializes a counter, which is then tested against a terminating condition. So for loop combines the best of all worlds into a single looping construct that allows you to pass three parameters for each statement. So we have there the initialization expression, a conditional expression, and the modification expression. So again, these are all separated. So the initialization, the condition, and modification expression are all separated by semicolons. So at the start of the first iteration of the loop, the initialization expression is executed. In case of the code for the multiplication table, for example, for 7, count would be initialized to the value 1, And then each time around the loop, the condition expression is tested. And then the loop is entered only if the condition is true. So finally, at the end of each iteration, the modification expression is executed. So in this example, we have here the for loop, and then we have here the initialization variable is equivalent to 0. And then for our condition expression, we have variable I less than cars that length. And then we have for our modification, the increment. Okay? And then we have here the function document that right. And then we have the variable cars, then followed by I, and then line break. So once we run it, so we can see, or it will display to us the values of the cars depending upon the length of the cars initiated. Next, so we have here the while statement. So a JavaScript while loop first checks the value of an expression and starts executing the statements within the loop only if that expression is true. Sorry. If it is false, execution skips over to the next JavaScript statement if there is any. So upon completing an iteration of the loop, the expression is again tested to see if it is true. And the process continues until such a time as the expression evaluates to false or until execution is otherwise halted. So in this example that we have in our screen, so again, guys, do not forget the start tag and end tag for our script. And then we set a variable counter equivalent to 0. So for our while loop statement, so we use while followed by counter is less than 5. And then we use the function again, document that right. And then the string counter, so that will be displayed on our screen. And then the plus counter plus. Okay? And then it will increment, or the value of the counter will be incremented. So again, guys, it will start with the value 0 since we set it, or we set the value of the counter initially by 0. And then as the loop goes on, it will increment by 1. Then we have here our do-while loop. So when you require a loop to iterate at least once before any tests are made, we use a do-while loop, which is similar to a while loop, except that the test expression is checked only after each iteration of the loop. So that means to output the first set of values. For example, we'll be using the 7 times table. You could use code such as in this one, in our example. So we set the count or the variable count into 1. And then we have the do, the function document that right, count plus times 7 is plus count multiplied by 7. So next to it is our while condition. So again, the count variable will be incremented and then it will be tested if it is less than or equal to 7. So that is the main difference of this do while loop to our previous while loop. So if we continuously run this, it will give us an output 1 times 7 is 7, since we started our variable with the value 1. Then, again, it will iterate. So the next output will be 2 times, since we have here plus plus count. So that means the value of our count now is 2. So 2 times 7 is 14. And then so on until it reach the condition wherein count variable is equal to 7. Because after that, the value of the count will be 8, considering that it increments 1. And it will not satisfy now the condition that the variable count is less than or equal to 7. So that would be all for our conditional statements in JavaScript. Do you have any question, guys?